Hello everyone and welcome to our Spring Porch Goose series, which is a new series. I'm so excited about it. It's a little quirky, a little cute. I'm going to try to keep it in a beginner watercolor zone, and I think that that's going to work for everyone. But if you find that you're struggling with anything that we're painting, I wanted to point out that we have a series from October, and it's days 1 through 30 of different learning, just techniques and tips and tricks about watercolors. And if you go to my homepage and you go to videos, it's all the ones with the light blue background are the 30 days of tips and tricks. So I'm sending you there if you are wanting to kind of like get a better start before you dig into this one. Otherwise, you can do that afterwards if you haven't done it. Also, I wanted to tell you that if you don't have the free printable printed in it, you'll get like a little template like this, and we'll use this to begin each of our sketches. You don't have to if you want to just do a goose like this, but if you want it to be the same, I've got that one as a free printable. It also has these little gift tags on it, so that's kind of a fun little one. And each week I will have in the description box below, I'm going to have a link for a porch goose if you want one. I actually don't have one, but they're funny. And the outfit that we paint each week, I'll have a link for that as well, because that's where I'm getting these ideas. If you want to get yourself a little desk goose, I'll have that linked. And if I have a goose shirt on, I will link that for you as well, if you want to be twins with me. So I think that's everything. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you're digging watercolors in general, I say go for it. Subscribe, because it'll be easier to find these tutorials later, and it helps support my channel. So, okay, so here is the one we're going to paint today. We're doing the Porch Goose bee. And she's a cutie. You can see there's some good highlights in there, and I like that the body has a bit of simplicity to it as we begin, and I think it's just a fun one to start with. So I will go ahead and turn the camera around. We'll start talking about supplies. All of those will be linked in the description box below. So before we get into it though, okay, if you have a candle, if you have a blanket, if you have something to make your space cozy, make sure you're warm enough or cool enough. Maybe you need some hot tea or some candy. I don't know what you need, but make sure you're like set up, because this is it can be just like a lovely time for yourself. So I've got my candle lit, and I'm going to check out my environment before I even get started, and let's hang out and paint together. All right, for supplies, this is the paint set that I like to use. It's just kind of a student grade beginner set, and I love it. And the colors are really nice and vibrant. There's a great pink. There's a great ways to make teal. There's just there's 36 colors. You can travel with it, and it's got this little link on the back here for holding it, so I really like that one. And then I do teach with just one brush. I'm considering teaching with a smaller brush as well, but really I just use the one like 98% of the time. So this is a size 10 round Winsor & Newton watercolor brush, which I really like. I think they're about, I don't know, $12 to $15, but it's a good one to have. So definitely a good brush. And then we'll have just like a regular old pencil and a kneaded eraser. The kneaded eraser doesn't leave shavings on your paper, so you don't have to be like brushing them off all the time, which is great. For the ink work at the end, you could use a micron pen. Let me see what I've got here. You could use some kind of a micron. You could use a felt tip pen. I am probably going to use an ultra fine point Sharpie. You could use pretty much anything you have, because we'll make sure our watercolors are dry before we get to that point. You do need to have some kind of water. I just have mine in this like vessel, and the water's only about that high, so it's not going all the way up our brush. Then I have a towel. I prefer that over paper towel. And if you have a little spray bottle like this, that's great to spray your paints with. And we will need some sort of a heat tool or a hair dryer, like an old hair dryer. And that will just help us speed up the process a little bit as we work between layers and have paint that's wet. So that's all of that. And then I just wanted to just show again that if you download the template and print it out, if you print it on like a higher quality paper, that's a good way to do it, because you'll get this richness. Like this looks really nice, but if you've got yours on a really thin paper, it probably won't seem as, you know, quality, and the colors won't be as rich. So that's up to you. I've got mine on like a matte photo paper because it just makes them a little sturdier. And I did do one in either direction, just so if we're going one direction, you can do this. You could obviously just turn it over and that's fine too, but just for fun, I gave you both. And here's your little cute quote for this one. And then let's see, I feel like that's it. One thing I wanted to talk about is this. I obviously had to have one mistake in my ads for this series. So I told you 4.5 inch by 5.5 inch paper, but I also told you something that doesn't make sense, which is that you could take 9 by 12 paper and cut it into 4. And if you did so, your paper would be slightly bigger. Both of them are going to work just fine. So whatever you have is great. If you don't want this, like you could print this bigger and do big giant ones. Nobody's the boss of you, okay? So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way a little bit. And for now, we're going to start by just observing. I initially was going to do this on paper that was double the size of our 3 inch by 3 inch squares we usually use, because I thought that'd be kind of cute because it would fit with the rest. But I didn't like how it kind of boxed us in, and if any of them have arms, it just gets a little bit too tight. But we will use this one as we observe, and then this one as well. Yours will look a little bit closer to this size paper, even though this isn't the same either, because, well, apparently I can't do that. Okay, so here she is. Okay, so she is wearing, so this is a goose and it's a porch goose. So there's no, you know, wings coming out because the whole thing really is this shape, and the wing is just, you know, the idea of a wing on the goose is like this. Let me see. Kind of how she is, there's no wings sticking out. She's just goose shaped. And so that's what we'll be using for all of them. And so we don't have to take into account wings, which is kind of fun. But in the costumes, you'll see that in some of them. So it's going to be cute. So she's got just like this shirt that fits over her real nice. It is stripes. You can make them all the same, or you could add details of skinny stripes on the top and the bottom if you wanted to. See how this one's a little skinnier. And she's got a little cutie hat on, and that gives her antenna. Is that going to be the right word? And then we've got these wings, and I kind of played around with how to do the wings. This seemed a little thick to me. This is a little thinner. You can look up bee wings if you want to grab a reference off of Google or something like that. That's great too. But basically for observation, I guess what we want is that when we place the template, we want maybe the legs to be kind of in the middle. We want to make sure we have space for this shadow down here. And I don't think there's a lot else we need to do. I guess I'll point out 2 more things and we'll move on to sketching. One is that I left the highlight right about here. I liked it just being on this part of her. And I did that by lifting. So we're actually going to put that paint in and then use our brush to lift, which is one of the techniques in the tips and tricks videos. I'll link that one too. And then you might see a little bit of darker paint on these far edges, which just gives somewhat of that illusion of depth and just roundness. There's also some shadowing. You can't see it too much, maybe a little bit more on this one, some shadowing just to give depth to our goose. And I don't know, her hat is a different shape on both of them. Both are great. Everybody's are going to be different, and that's great too. You can get into more details on the feet. I'm going to leave them simple each week. But I feel like that's pretty good. Let's get started, because as my children say, we don't like it when the art teacher talks too much before we get started. We just want to get into the art, and I get it. So got my pencil and my eraser. We did a little bit of observing. We will start this time, which is kind of fun, with our template. And even though you might think that there won't be much drawing because of that, I'm telling you, I've done them all. I have them all prepared, and you still will be drawing for sure. It'll just kind of give us a good start. So I'm taking into account her wings. Wings go a little further than her body. So I know I need space for those and for the shadow. And then on each of them, you're going to look what's on their head, because you need to make sure you've got space for that as well. And I think I do, but I'm going to come a little bit lower. It's safer if you kind of come lower. And then we're going to just kind of make sure you like where you've got your template. If you want to take a screenshot of this right now because you are not printing the template, you don't have a printer or you don't want to do it, go ahead and take a screenshot if you want the shape of the goose. And then all the rest of us, let's just put your fingers down and hold it. And we'll do very lightly, even though we're tracing a template, you never know what you're going to want to move. And because we know we're placing clothing on top of the goose each week, we might want to or need to erase some of what we've already done with the template because the clothing will cover it. Does that make sense? So still light. And we always say that when drawing together is that we'll press really lightly on our pencil so that we can erase freely, which means you can draw freely and you don't just have to worry. Okay, when you go around this beak, I always say keep tight to it. And you may, I find that I'm changing the beak a little bit sometimes and making it smaller or just different. And at this point, we should have our goose. And then each time we've got the two things. We've got the line here for the beak. So you can just look at your template, and I just kind of keep loose about it. If I want to change it later, I can then. And then for this, we need to place the line work for this front foot. So following this bottom part, and you can curve it a little bit. You're just going to make it match up with this line. So you're just connecting, and then this one's going to come pretty much all the way up. And then this is kind of a jagged line, like the fur is maybe covering the legs. Okay, she's cute. If you want to put an eyeball in, do it lightly because you might change your mind and say, oh, she's going to have a closed eye, or I want to move it because the hat is in a different position than I thought it was going to be. So everything light on your pencil. And you're going to have to wing it to start, and this is always the case. And once you do, you'll have more lines on your paper, and you'll be able to use those lines as guides, and it's all going to come together. You just got to trust the process, okay? So coming down to about here, and how am I deciding it? I'm just looking at it, you know. I'm going to go, it's not 2 of my fingers. It's more than my whole fat thumb, you know. So you could place that down and just guess. But honestly, make sure you can see enough of the neck. And if you in a minute don't like this, you'll just move it. So like the stakes are low. Now from here, if you want it to follow the edges of the goose, great. If you wanted it to come out a little wider, also great. Notice how, as I did this, it's not just a smile, but it comes around these sides. And I'll show you that up close. This little part coming around is what it makes it look like it goes around her. That's the neck, and you're seeing kind of the other side of the clothing. So make sure you come around those sides. It's like if it was a pancake, we're seeing the sides of the pancake. And then we want to decide where we want it to end. And I know I want to see the goose still. So I don't want it to come too close to the bottom. And I don't really want it to touch the legs. So see that? I could fit, not quite a pencil, you know, between the leg and where I want that to start. So once again, I'm going to be a broken record. Press lightly on your pencil. I want it to come right before this dips in, because anything like that's going to give us some cuteness. And then I'm going to just do this and then see if I like the shape of it. It's kind of matching the curve of the bottom of her. I'll change mine just a little, just because I looked at it and decided I wanted to. So all along when we are drawing together, we're using pencil and eraser always. No one is ever getting it on the first try unless you're crazy and you're using a pen. And if you are, I love you. Okay. So we've got this. Let's go ahead and get the lines in here. We'll just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 total, but I don't really care about that. If you care about it, great. If you did this, erase your inside line. Just so it's easier now before you put more stuff in here. Yeah, it's good enough. And then however wide I want it to be, I'm just going to come down from that neck. And I'm going to follow the curve of the neck. So like this, follow that. And that's what I'll use. And I can do maybe another one. And then watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to the bottom. So I've got 2. Let's make it the same width here. Following this curve. And I'll do it again. And now see what we've got is this side is bigger and this side is smaller. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, I don't think I have enough space. 1, 2, 3, 4. We might have 7. Like, it just does not matter. There does not need to be an equal number. But right here, I see I can fit 2. So I'm going to look at this space, and I divided it into thirds. I want 1, 2, 3 equal spaces. We'll try it here. if I divided this big section into thirds, it'd be 1, 2. And let's see what it looks like. Now I'm trying to follow these curves that I've already created. I think I got it a little bit wrong right there, so I'll just correct that one with my eraser. And you see it just gave us some pretty good equal lines, and that's what we're looking for. And it gives us this nice curve. Now, if you have a different way of doing it, honestly, you probably already did it that way. So good for you. There's so many ways we can do art, and it's fun to see how our brains all work differently. I say let's get the hat on next. So the hat is like a beret, maybe. I don't actually know, but look how different these two are again. You know what it looks kind of like is a jelly bean. I don't know. Which one do we like better is the question. Maybe this one is kind of cute. So let's put some dots here. Okay, we'll put these guys kind of next to each other so we can see them both. Where does it go to? I think maybe here I see a curve like that. So see how I put like a C maybe? Just a nice curve. Same thing here. If I notice it comes up and then over out to the left. So up and then over out like that. Okay, and then I'm looking. Look right here. We're using this shape that this is creating to see. So beak, head, out to the side. And then from here, we'll connect those curves. Maybe a little bit of flatness on the top. And then connect them. Oh, she's cute already. Now let's cover part of the head. I think that's going to make it look more natural, like it's actually sitting on the head, like over the head. And I erased the head now. I'm going to look at it. Do I like it? I think I do. And let's get these antennae on there. I just think they're cute because they're a little wonky. You do them wherever you want. So I'm going to start, see how these are wider apart and these are tighter together? That doesn't matter. So I'll come up and out, up and out. I think they're cute. I don't really care what I do with them. And then we'll place circles right on the ends of them. If you don't like them, just grab out your eraser and mess with them until you do. Oh, and then what I think is so cute is like the strap. Like, it's a costume. She got to hold that hat on there. And so I'm going to show you this up close too, is that it comes down from here, but it is wrapping around. So this curve right here is kind of important, like not just ending it kind of straight, but it looking like it goes around her head. So I'll come down from here and get to this, and then it's the little curve right here. And then come out, and we'll do it again. It's a little aura where you put a line alongside of a line. Beautiful. If you can get in there and erase the teeny tiny line that's in there, great. And if you can't, also great. If it was so tiny that we had to zoom in, like, we don't need to worry about it. But we can. Okay, wings. The wings are fun. They can lay down on the body more, or they can be up more. If you prefer, oops, let me zoom out. There you go. If you prefer one look over the other, great. This is maybe a little more costumey because it's set down, right? But if there's wire in these, that works too. I think I'm going to do kind of a cross between the two, and I will start by doing... I'm going to do the bottom wing first because then I can know how far down it is, okay? So I'm going to put some dots. This is like the dot method where you just lightly with your pencil put where you're going to go. And I like that there's not very much space between the wing and the body. So I want to start with like this. It's like, okay, less of a dot, more of a line today, but whichever. And I'm going to draw both wings fully, and then erase part of one because we know we don't see this whole wing. So they'd be starting kind of up here, and I'm going to come a little straight first and then round out. If I don't like this, you know by now, I'll just erase it. So that's one. And then I'll do the other. See how I can make a triangle here, Make sure they're not just flat on top of each other. You won't be able to put any design in this bottom one. So maybe like I need to get to here. And these would stay very close. They would be together. So this would be coming just above this one. Up, maybe over and curve. And then this one will lay on top. See how tight it gets right here? And I see some straightness on these sides. And I will now erase the line right here. that goes through the top one. It's coming along, isn't it? I think it's cute. Okay. Okay, love it. Now, don't be too worried about how we do this. This one, I just played with it. It's kind of a cute design. It's just a loop and then some lines out from it. If you want to simplify things, a loop starting and ending right at the base of that wing, right? And then some lines outward from it, and it's nice and simple. It's easy to like make sense of it, right? This one I was kind of looking at bee wings, and then like, I don't know, I did whatever I did. I'll do the more complex one, but like that's that one if you just want to see it. Okay, so what I want to do is take from the, we're going to do the top wing first because it's not hidden, so it's a little easier. And I'm going to come not even halfway down that wing to about here. If you're like, I hate this, don't do it this way. Your body knows. It's like, I can't deal with that. Okay, I did this, and I'm going to come up and out from one. And let's see, up and out from another. And then I just have this big space to work in. And it's funny, it's just sort of, I know there's an order to it, but it's just not one we need to worry about too much. So like maybe from here, I will put this rectangle-y shape. Okay. And then over here, I'll do another thing, and it's just going to come to the side. So really, it's just dividing it into all these little shapes. And it's going to look insecty, which is a new word that I just made up right now. Maybe like that. If this is like, oh dear, that's terrible, do this one. Simple, cute. And I'm going to just try to copy what I did here under this, which means I'm going to have to use my imagination a little because I can't see it all. So I'll try to find center a little bit and do this little skinny situation. And then I'll come this way. Oh, that is my cat using the wall as a scratching board. Okay. And then let's see. Honestly, just start to divide it up a little bit. I did this. I'll come up and do another section. A loop here, maybe just like that even. If you look at it and you're like, eh, then just adjust it a little bit, okay? Another thing I think we're going to do is we're going to focus on line weight just a little bit because I think it'll help us distinguish these wings from each other. So I don't know if you can tell, but right here I made this line a little darker. So we can do that with our pencil to begin with to help us make sense of it. And then we'll do it with our paint later. So I'm just taking the bottom. Is that the right line? Well, it is today. The bottom and the bottom, I just darkened. That's all I did. But you can learn more about line weight in our 30-day series. Okay, I'm digging it. Let's draw the shadow a little because I feel like it might be helpful. It doesn't matter too much. The only things that I think should matter are that it comes like right out from the feet, so touching. So you're not going to see white space here. And look, it's kind of ovally shaped. Great. I mean, it kind of comes out. You see there's like, I don't know what. There's no shadow on the other one. So I'm going to come and I'm going to go so light with my pencil because I actually don't really want to see it. Like maybe like this. Okay. Wow, the sun's out. Look, you can see my shadow, which may not be helpful. So here's the shadow. Okay. And if you feel good to go, we're going to move our pencil and our eraser out of the way. We're done with those. And we're going to get out our paints. So if you're not quite done, you're finishing that up. And if there's any pencil that got really dark or you're just not quite sure, erase that. Double check this because we want to make sure we like this before we get out any paints. Okay. You can always pause me. And let's see. So I am moving all my stuff over and I'm going to grab my little spray bottle and I'm going to spray my paints. Maybe 10 times, something like that. And see how nice and glossy they are now. So this is like a tactic. So it's making these a little bit easier to use than they already were. They were already great. I didn't even know about spraying your paints for like years. And now I'm like, oh, look at that. And it kind of activates your paints and gets them ready. That makes them easier to use. So we're going to do that. I've got my palette nice and clean. If you have colors on your palette, you can always just get your brush wet and then refresh your puddles and just use what you've got. This one's simple. We don't need very many colors at all. So we're going to need a nice light yellow, and I say get your yellow first before your water starts to get dirty. On this set, we've got 2 different yellows here, and you can think about which one that you like. Maybe if you start with, maybe use them both. If we started with this lighter one and made a puddle, so I'm going to tell you what I did. I got my brush wet in the water, came here, swirled my brush around, put that paint right here. I'll go to my water and back, and see how nice and puddly this is. It needs to be able to move around. So if you can't consider this a puddle, it doesn't have enough water, because puddles are watery, waters are puddly. And we'll call these our paints and these are puddles. We're going to prep all of our colors and everything here before we get started, because then we don't have to be doing this while this is drying. Okay, so that's why we do that. And I like that a lot. Then I also want to take my brush, I'm just going to touch it on my towel so there's less water, and I'm going to grab some of this darker yellow, and I have very, very little water now, but I have a little bit, and I'm grabbing a lot of that, and I'm going to make a puddle like this. I just want to kind of be able to have a little bit of variety in our yellows. So I got a little puddle of the darker yellow, a bigger puddle of the regular sort of light yellow. If this is too dark, you won't really see that. So make sure this is kind of lighter. The way we get our colors lighter in watercolor is by adding water. Okay. And then let's pick what color we want to do for the beak and the feet. So I'm really keeping it standard for all of these, and I'm just kind of getting into one of these 2 lighter oranges. You don't need a lot of water because these are small spaces, and we'll just get a little puddle ready. If you wanted to get more detailed into those, that's great. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So now we've got that. We've got that. We'll be able to use a little bit of this from here for the wings when we get to them. And then we're going to have a nice dark black. So I did want to talk real quick about the value scale before we get into this, because, okay, the value scale is here. Once again, this is in the days 1 through 30 of the tips and tricks. Like, I've got a day about everything. But what I really wanted to point out is, like, see how much, look what I just did. Don't be like me, you guys. Okay, what a mess. Okay, back at it. If this was a really light gray next to yellow, we are not going to get that punch and that boldness. What we want is, if you look at our value scale, we're real dark into it here for the black. And then we've got our yellow, which is nice and light. So we have this bold contrast. And if you don't get enough black into your puddle, yours is going to be somewhere here, and yours is not going to look the same. So this is when you're going to be brave, and we're going to make our puddle. So I'm taking my brush, and I'm dipping the first third of it into my water, and then I'll go to my black paint. I'm going to get like this. I probably have done this like 15 times, okay? And then over here to a puddle. And right away, I can tell it's decently dark. If I move my brush around and I can see through it a lot, I know it could be darker, okay? So more paint. I didn't add water again, but I want this nice, kind of small, but it still has to be a puddle, and it needs enough paint in it that we get a real rich darkness to our color, okay? Love it. You're doing amazing. I'm going to clean out my brush. Now, if you want to, actually, I'm going to pause it too and do the same thing, because look how dark my water just got. So let's get our water clean before we start with our yellow. So I've got some nice fresh water, and I just took a nice drink of my actual water, which maybe we should all do. Stay hydrated. And we have our puddles ready. So definitely a simplicity in our color palette today. So the first thing that I want to do is, because we can layer, I want to paint this whole shirt yellow. Now, you don't have to, and if you do it, also your highlights might look yellow, but I like that, okay? Because we'll do the black later after that's fully dry. So for right now, we're on yellow. I'm going to take my brush, dip the tip of my brush into my water, and then I'm going to go to my yellow puddle, and I maybe put the first half of my brush into that puddle. Now I will take my brush and I'm going to run it along the sides. So the tip of my brush is along the edges, but but I'm also leaning into the belly of my brush and just getting this filled in. My color is kind of light, so I'm darkening it up just a little at my puddle. Yeah, I brightened it right up, and then I'm just going over the whole thing real quick while it's wet. Notice this is kind of like a puddle moving around. You can see the light reflecting on this. If you can't see the light reflecting on yours, you need to add water because we don't want it drying while we work. Okay, I'm going to take my brush, touch it to my towel, come back, and I'm going to lift up some of that. There was excess. It was like pooling. And then while it's wet, I can't resist a little time of a wet on wet technique, which is another of our days 1 through 30. So I'm going to get into this darker yellow puddle, okay? And then I'm going to run it along the sides, which when we finish will also kind of help us with this idea that this is a 3D object. Kind of sets it backwards a little. I just got a little more paint right out of my paint, not my puddle, and I'm loading it in while it's wet. So if my first bit of yellow paint was dry, this would not be blending. So if yours is not blending, you need to add a little bit more water. If you feel totally out of control, you have too much water, you can touch your brush, like clean your brush, dry your brush, and come and just use this brush to lift and touch it just like I did, and you'll gain control back. Beautiful. And then from here, we want to do a really nice and light coat of paint on the wings. Why? I don't know. Are they actually yellow? I don't know, but mine are today. So if you don't want yours that color, that's totally fine. But I'm going to take a little bit of that light yellow. I'm just going to fill them in. Really light though, like lighter for sure than this. And remember, we get our colors lighter by adding water. And so you can clean your brush out and get all the pigment out of your brush first, then get some of this in here. And for some reason, I kind of liked darkening the top of this one a little, if you see on here, and then right under. So it's like the shadow essentially from the top wing. Just putting a little bit of darkness here. You can hardly see it. That's okay. And then we have one more yellow thing. This is a fun one because we can do a lot all at once before we have to dry anything. So the little balls on the antenna, are they antenna? If not, you can tell me. I can take it. We're just going to fill those in. So this is very, very little paint water, like teeniest bit. I just took it from my paint because I knew I needed such a little amount. I didn't even take it from a puddle because I knew I could do it that way. So now we're going to get into our orange and do the beak and the feet. I will show you real quick though. Do you see how I did do a little bit of darkness on the bottom of the beak? And a little tiny bit of darkness on the feet. I just kind of can't resist. So I'm cleaning my brush, wiping it on my towel, and then just putting like the first third of my brush into my orange puddle. And I'm noticing the shape is a little funky. So look, I just brought it in, and I think it's because we're tracing a template. It gets it a little bigger. Okay, so I just quick fixed it, and then I come in with my paint. But you can always make these little changes even if it's sort of out of order. Okay, I got my beak. I need just a little bit more paint. So I just added water to my puddle, but I just did the tip of my brush into that puddle because we really want to keep control in these smaller spaces. And then I just filled those in. So same thing that we've done before, and this will be over and over again, is I will now clean my brush and dry it, and I'll take it, and if there was puddling or pooling, I just touched my brush to lift it up. And then now while it's wet, if you want to, and this is absolutely optional, I'm just getting a little bit of just paint, barely any water at all on here. And I'm just like darkening up maybe the bottoms, maybe this part because it's hidden, maybe the bottom of this. But it's a little tricky because like, okay, it was already pretty much dry underneath. So now with a clean, dry brush, I'm just going to soften up those edges. So you just kind of look at what you're seeing on yours because ours are all looking different right now and just make little adjustments. But I think that's cute. It gives just a little bit more dimension, which we like. Oh my goodness. Okay. I think we'll wait on the shadow a second. So now all we have left is shadow, and then everything else I think is our black paint. So let's give her a quick dry, fully dry, and then we'll go on to our black. Did you notice when I said fully dry, it was like my mom voice? I was like, no, fully dry. And the reason is because if you put black paint on top of a paint that's wet, the black paint is going to sort of, it'll look like fuzzy and it'll sort of just
blend right into your other color, and it's just gonna look not so neat, and I don't think you'll like how it looks. So for this one, we want this layer fully dry. We can tell that it's dry when we hold it up and we can't see the light reflecting on it, then you know you're good to go. So from here, let's go ahead and do our, I'm gonna have us save the shadow for last so we don't accidentally bump our hand into it. And we're gonna take our puddle. So I guess I wanna explain this right before we get into it, is like we will be painting our stripes. If you do one stripe and then try to get your highlight out and then wait and do the next one and then we'll lift our highlight out, you'll have more control, but it also is going to kind of take more time because maybe it's still pretty wet. What I like to do is either do, at home, I would probably do all 4 stripes at the same time. I would lift out their highlights and then I would add some darkness all at the same time. But a way to have it a little more control is like maybe we do 2 of them. Okay, then we go back to the next 2. So we'll do the first 2 black stripes. We'll try it that way. I have a clean, dry brush. I will dip the tip of my brush into my water and then into my black puddle. And I'm just make sure your puddle is how you want it. Okay, I'm going to go into this, not the first one, but the second one. It does not matter. You can pick whichever one you want. And I'm going to make sure I get into those corners because it's such a big contrast between the black and the yellow that we'll definitely be able to see our edges, okay? So really light on the tip of your brush in the corners and then lean into your brush and we'll come all the way here. Really light on the tip of your brush for those corners. Okay, and then we're gonna fill in this whole thing. If this bottom line gets jagged, you can turn your paper if you need to and run your brush along it. You just straighten it out. Okay, and look how wet mine is. I'm going to show you. If yours is almost dry already, you're going to have to lift your highlight out. But I'm going to quick do my next one and then I'll show you. So this thing that I can't exactly tell you is how much water and how much paint. I can try to tell you, but you're always having to look at what's happening on the end of your brush. If it's out of control, you have too much water. If it's taken forever to dry, maybe you have too much water. And if it's not doing what we want, you probably need a little more. I just cleaned my brush, dried it on my towel, and while this is still wet, I will press and lift right here. Press and lift right here. Now I need to take my brush and clean it and dry it again because it's wet enough that it just filled back in. So press and lift again. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just having to observe what's happening, right? And that's so much of the time. You didn't do anything wrong. You just have to see, oh, it's a little wet, or it needs, what does it need? You're assessing. You're like a little doctor. Okay, and then I'm going to add darkness on this edge just because I want to. So you're looking at yours and seeing if it maybe could use it. I like darkness on the edges, but really look at yours. Okay, now here I'm cleaning my brush out real good. Then I'm wiping it on my towel so I know what I'm starting with. I am dipping the tip of my brush into the water and refreshing my black puddle. Oh, look, I'm only going to have literally 3 black stripes. That's so funny. I mean, I could have figured that out when we counted in the beginning, except that I didn't. So 3 is great. She still looks like a bee. You could do it again, and you could do really skinny stripes and see if you like that too. Makes me wonder how many stripes are on a bee. Do we have any bee experts here? Or anybody who has bees? If so, we need like some fun facts in the description or something. Or anybody have this porch goose and this costume? We want to hear from you too, because that's funny. Okay, so I just did the same thing, filled this whole thing in while it was wet, lifted out that highlight. And that's all I want, is just kind of following this line here. It's not on the edge, it's like this way, and that's where I'm getting my highlights in. And because we already added that definition with a darker yellow on the edges, see how it's all coming together? Isn't it so pretty? I love it. Okay, so we're going to do basically the same thing on the hat. You need to have your nice, rich, okay, dark color first. Same thing. I am going to tell you, I just had to add the teeniest bit of water because when I put my brush down, my brush had like more than one tip to it. If that's ever happening with your round watercolor brush, you need a tiny bit more water because it's going to kind of clump them together into one tip, and that's what you should be working with. If you're working with a bunch of them, like it's real jagged, oh, you're going to have a terrible time. Okay, I'm cleaning my brush, drying it on my towel. And then I'm going to lift out a highlight here. So you're just picking where, but just sort of follow the curve. Okay, so that didn't do much. I got to press and lift. Sometimes, I mean, with these dark colors like black, purple, blue, it's going to like stain your paper pretty quickly. So if you're having trouble with these highlights, first of all, I don't want anyone expecting to nail this on your first try. I nailed nothing on my first try. So many tries. So maybe prepare yourself to be painting some porch goose bees today, you know, because the more you do, I think the better you'll feel about all of it. Okay, all we have left with our paints is actually the shadow, and then the rest of it we're going to be getting into our ink for. So for this, okay, I'm going to show it to you real quick. So anything where you want, you're going to use black to get gray, which we can also use our complement colors on the color wheel. But if you're using black, you need just a little. Take it over somewhere else and look at it. It's mostly water, a little bit of black paint. So I'm taking from this, I added water, and look at it here. Okay, that's probably a pretty good color. And then I will go ahead with my shadow. I am going to tell you something different about the shadow, so you might want to watch this part, okay? I'll take this paint. I'm coming all the way up to those feet, leaning into the belly, just kind of using this as my shape. Okay, I like it. I'm cleaning my brush. I'm drying my brush. And then I'm going to take it and just soften the edge by adding water right to my edges. So if you're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done pencil because you can see that edge, next time don't do pencil. But I like it for the beginning because it helps you kind of know where you're placing it. And then you're going to look, do you like it? If you want a little bit more darkness, you can get into your black while it's all wet and just add a little bit more before you start. But I think if it gets too dark, like that's too dark, so I'm actually lifting some out, then it starts looking like a shadow and starts looking like some weird black thing on the ground. Like you're like, what is it? So shadow should be kind of subtle. I'm lightening mine up because I didn't like any of that. But that's pretty good. I probably won't draw it next time because I don't really want to see those edges on a shadow. Okay. Oh, you know what we didn't do? You guys, you probably already knew. Same thing for the actual goose. I almost forgot. Okay. If you look at her, you can see there's a little bit of gray under her hat, along the back of her neck, and a little right here. It's kind of like, where do I think there might be a shadow? That's where I'm putting it in. Okay. And I think on this one, you can see those lines a little stronger. So right under the hat, behind the neck. So you're looking at this color. You're trying to make that color, which is exactly what we just did for the shadow, but you're deciding how much black paint and how much water. You can test this out on another paper if you want. So I just did it under the hat. I just did it along the back side of the neck. And I'm going to go underneath like the sort of, so the shirt would be giving this little shadow. Now, if you wanted to do like this and give some feathers or something, play around, live your life, do anything you want. If you don't like it, right away get in there with your brush, with a clean, dry brush, and lighten it up and change it. You have more control than you think with watercolors. You just have to learn the techniques. Oh my goodness, she is adorable. Let's give the whole thing a real good solid dry, and then we'll go in with our ink. I just made a little rule for myself that every time I use that dryer, I should also take a drink of water because I'm trying to stay hydrated. Okay, you see what I just did? It was a little curled and bent up because it had to absorb all that water. So I just took it and gently rolled it kind of backwards. You never want to bend it, but just gently rolling it, and then it'll be pretty straight. And we will look at this one for a moment, and if you want to take a screenshot, you can. But what we're going to do right now is follow all of our pencil lines, and that's all. So I didn't put a line between the beak and the face. To me, I just didn't want like that harshness, although let's see what it looks like if we do. I mean, still adorable. See the difference? That's up to you. Personal preference. If you wanted these to look like fuzzy palms, you probably could like, when you got to this part, make them nice and jagged and sort of scribbly for the palms. And you would just try to cover your pencil lines if you did that. I'll do this one that way. It sounds fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you want to take into account, but I think this one's pretty straightforward. I would not go over your pencil line on the shadow. And other than that, we're just getting in there. I'm going to do the fuzzy up here just for fun. It feels right. It's cute, right? I already can't wait to see yours. So we just finished a series called the Plant Buddies series, and I actually may do another one of it in the future. I think it was so fun. And I have lots of ideas that we could do for that, but we just finished that one up and it was so much fun. So it's kind of fun to see what these guys are going to look like too. Somebody asked, like, how do I come up with this series? And I just thought, oh dear, to be in my brain. Like, I don't know. They're cute, and I was like, I probably could teach that. And then it's like a spiral from there. You have to be in the right creative process, I think. So as we do this ink, if your pencil was more of a straight line and you wanted to curve this neck a little bit more with your ink, this is when you can do that. You can always change it a little bit on this last layer where you have all this control, and you also have contrast because it's such a dark color on top of the rest. Now, if you wanted the shirt to look a little wider, you can emphasize that as well. So I just kind of brought it out just a hair. Okay, so those little tiny changes. I'm going to do the wings last because they're kind of like, I don't know. They're the part that I feel like is, oh, I don't know, detailed maybe. I was going to say wonky, I'll be honest. Okay, the feet, I'm always going to leave simple. I tried other ways. In fact, I'll show you. Look at this. This is my desk goose. Look at those feet. And so if you look at this from the side, okay, that's my magnet I have taped on there because it came off. But see, if you see it from the side, they're like giant feet. I was like, I don't know about that. So even though I tried that one, I went with simplicity. But you can do anything you want. You can maybe draw a bunch of geese. Okay, look, I just added some curves right here. I wiggled my line a little bit. Notice even more than this one. And I think that's always going to make it look kind of like feathers a little bit. So if you want to do that, that option is there for you too. And I think I'm all the way to the point where I'm ready to do the wings. So you're almost there. Okay, so we had this Facebook group called Audrey's Art Club. I didn't have a better name. So that's the name. And I love to see your artwork there. So each week I try to make sure that we have like a prompt. So we'll have a picture of this guy, and underneath of that, you can all share your pictures, your paintings of your bee porch goose. I'm trying to call it Porch Goose series instead of Porch Geese series because it sounds like Portuguese, which is great, but not what we're doing, you know? So that one makes me laugh. So yeah, we'll have that there. It's called Audrey's Art Club, and it's just a Facebook group, and everyone's so like nice and supportive. So I feel like it's so cool to see people just sort of making friends on there too. We all kind of need that. Oh my goodness, I already can't wait for the next week. This is so fun. So you're an artist. If you're making art, and you're making art right now, make sure you sign your work any way that you want to. The way I'm doing it in this series is on whatever side I put the shadow, I'm signing it underneath of. You can do that any way that you want to. I hope you had fun. If you have questions or you need me to slow down on anything, or you just want to know something, write it in the comments. And I can't wait to see your artwork from this one. Also, real quick, look at this. Look at the beak shape. I really brought it in, didn't I? That's so funny. Well, that's okay. I will see you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out with me.